Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a pair, the next two pair is Charles Heidsieck. And so we've got their vintage, which is 2005 in Magnum, versus the Blanc de Millénaires, which is 1995. So we've got a big age difference with these, and we should be able to spot that when we taste them, because the Magnum should be even younger, being in Magnum. So the 10-year spread should have gone to more. So they're the next two that are coming out.
And many of you will know Blanc de Millénaires, that seems to be indestructible and immortal because it's been hanging around for so long as Charles Heidsieck's prestige cuvée through different ownerships. The new winemaker at the new chef de cave at Charles Heidsieck from the 2015 vintage onwards is Cyril Brun, who is very impressive. Was at Veuve Clicquot before as I think number 2. And he's really sort of sorting the house out and getting the vintage sequences right after sort of some hiccups. And Charles Heidsieck has made some absolutely brilliant wines consistently. Régis Camus, I think, was in charge of Blanc de Millénaires. And he saw that the 1995 vintage was absolutely wonderful for the grape sources that he had. But Charles Heidsieck at the time, the house, was going through a bit of a rough patch. And his managing director said, make sure you don't make too much prestige cuvée in 1995 because we're not sure we can sell it. And Régis Camus completely ignored him because he saw how good the wine was and actually made 10 times more wine than he was theoretically supposed to, which is why it's been going on and on and on. And his justification apparently was that managing directors, note this, change much more often than chef de cave. And so and he's been vindicated by the quality of this wine, which tastes relatively indestructible. We shall see how it compares with the Bollinger RD 2002 and whether it tastes distinctly much older than that. It's 100% Chardonnay, and we will be told what the precise dosage of what we're tasting is, but what we tasted in August was 12.2 grams per litre, which nowadays looks very, very high, and is a sort of relic, just shows how long ago it was that originally this wine was disgorged. And of course, because one of the major trends in Champagne, as you know, has been to reduce the dosage. It's a pretty magnificent wine that still seems to me, yes, a mature Chardonnay-based champagne, but it's not like one of those older champagnes that's 100% Chardonnay that actually is almost tasting like white Burgundy. It's very, very definitely champagne. We were told that there's very little bottle variation, and that it's been, the quantities are such that there's a new disgorgement every year in the summer. The 2005 is the current vintage, and I think I got the impression from Cyril Brun that if he'd been around when it had been released, he perhaps wouldn't have released it quite as early as it was released, because I think they're already running out of it, and it, to me, didn't show any signs of being at all old, so it was rather a shame that stocks are running low. Dosage, I think, is still relatively high at Charles Heidsieck. We were told what we tasted was nearly 11 grams per litre. And Cyril Brun said that seemed too high to me when I arrived, so I did all sorts of experiments with different dosage levels, and actually I could quite see why it was so high, and although in theory I wanted to reduce it, I can't see any reason to reduce it. It does seem to suit the style of wine. The 2005 is 60% Pinot Noir, 40% Chardonnay, and it was tasting pretty well to me. So let us see. I mean, in theory, 95 and 2005 should have a massive, massive gap between them, particularly with the 2005 in Magnum. So let's see what we think.
So, champagne number 3, the first Charles Heidsieck is...
Aha!
Oh dear. So the 95 is slightly everyone's...
But very slightly.
Very slight
Yeah,
majority.
yeah.
Okay, so number 4 is slightly the other way. There we go. Oh.
Yeah. No. So that's... So most people...
Okay, so a few people didn't do both. Okay, luckily I've got a statistician on hand.
Only by a small majority did most people think that wine number 4 was the older one when there was 10 years in it. And the preferences were very, very close. So, again, identical. Are you sure the system's working? Because it does look as though everybody, the scores are identical. Let us assume that it is working. I'll give you the bare bones. With the 05, 60% Pinot, 40% Chardonnay, dosage 10.8. I think that's pretty similar to what I said. Disgorged, summer 2014, on the lees 8 years. That was wine number 3. And the older wine, wine number 4, the Prestige Cuvée, which the majority of people got, but only just, 100% Chardonnay, dosage 12.2, that high dosage. Disgorged, spring 2014, on the lees 15 years. I must say, I thought they were quite, on the palate, I thought they were quite different. Although on the nose, I thought they were much closer together than I would have expected, considering there's 10 years between them. But 05 is already a mature wine anyway, isn't it? But it's got that kind of flirtatiousness, that kind of liveliness, and less deep and dense than the Millénaires, wine number 4. But I think you have to say that the Blanc de Millénaires is amazing for a wine of its age. From a vintage which, as we remember, there was a lot of 95 versus 96 discussion, and initially people thought 96 was going to be the great vintage, and obviously Régis Camus saw that the 95 was going to be the longer lasting, more deep flavoured wine, and he was certainly right. And so that they're a very, very nice pair. I think both of them are tasting very, very well. And I should warn you that because these wines it's alphabetical in terms of the name of the house, I think these two first pairs are unusual in how different the vintages are. We are about to have a pair, I believe, that where the vintages are the same, right?